Children's classes, junior youth groups, devotionals, and study circles are impacting this neighborhood in a very profound way. We see everyday families being reintroduced to one another through the power of prayer. We see stronger friendships amongst the youth, from instances of bullying being transformed into friendships on teams with sports. And we're also seeing families stepping outside of their comfort zones to get to know one another. Some junior youth in the neighborhood, now that COVID has hit, need internet access to be able to do virtual school. So we get here in the morning, we do a small devotional, then we open the doors up for anywhere from 10 to 15 middle schoolers or junior youth, and they do their classes, they do their homework, and we help tutor them if they need any help, if they need any assistance. They get food donated to them, school supplies donated to them. And then one day a week, sometimes 2 days a week, we have actual junior youth group. There's also a community garden at our Baha'i Center, and my family does have a plot. So what we do is also invite the neighborhood. So most of the plots out there, besides myself and one other youth, are actually just non-Baha'is who come to garden, and they'll pray and just build some community relationships. I made like a kale and potato curry soup for the students here that come during the day, and they never really eat vegan food, so they tasted it and it was like, oh my gosh, you just got those leaves from outside? That tastes like real food. And I'm like, it is real food, guys. That is how food grows. My name is Adefemi Oyemade, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I am a main sequence collaborator for the North Carolina subregion. I was born in Florence, South Carolina, to two teenage parents. My mother's parents were ministers of a church, so they did not believe in children before marriage, and so they made her marry my dad. So she was forced to be married, and then she had 2 more children. So I have one sister where we're almost 1 year apart exactly. And so we grew up kind of like twins. And then I have another sister 5 years younger than me. And then I have another sister, Ayana, who is 17. And then I have another sister who's just from my dad. My mom, she may have wanted to be an architect, but she decided that she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and just raise her family. But then she was divorced very young, and then she met my stepdad. But he wasn't like very kind. He was a really mean man. And so it made, even though materially we had everything we need, our household was kind of always tumultuous because there was a lot of fighting in our home. I was the student that loved school. I did not want to leave. My mom was very tough. We were not allowed to bring home anything lower than a B. I was a cheerleader, I was in ROTC, prom committee, Academy of International Studies, was in honors classes, AP classes. I graduated with pretty good scores, so I thoroughly enjoyed school. School was like a getaway. I love to learn. My mom grew up on a farm in a small town called Manning, South Carolina. So my grandparents had a lot of land, and so they lived in a brick house in the center, and then our home, and then my aunts and uncles, 2 sets of them, and then some cousins on our left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side was another aunt and uncle with some cousins. And all of my mom's brothers and sisters have at least 3 children, so I remember like running through the patches of some of the gardens I guess they still had on the land, running to each other's houses because we lived in mobile homes. It was a lot of not having to wear shoes, just outside, free, playing all day. Like, those are some of the most fondest memories I have. We moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. It was a big, interesting transition because I'm like, North Carolina can't be that different from South Carolina, but it's like drastically different than Florence, South Carolina. And after high school, I went to Winston-Salem State University. But my freshman year there, I met my now ex-husband. One day it was very, very rainy, and like nobody left their room, but I was tired of just sitting in my dorms. I'm like, maybe I'll just go to the cafeteria and get some lunch. So I walked in the rain, and he said, you're the first person that came in here all day long. We've been hanging out. I'm like, well, can I have some chicken tenders? And then he asked me for my phone number, and I was like, okay, sure. I met my husband, and then I think it was more like, okay, well, I'm gonna have this family, and it's gonna be great, When I found out I was pregnant with my son, he went to prison, and I was shocked because I didn't realize he was doing anything. He was secretly robbing people. I didn't believe in aborting my children. I felt like I wanted to marry the person that I had a child with, so I needed to stay with him. He went in early 2011 and got out late 2013, and we got married a week later. I felt like I wanted to fix my mistake, having this child without being married. And I think maybe I condemned myself. He was abusive. I wasn't going to leave because I was thinking, he was locked up for all of these months. He's probably institutionalized, because I found out a lot more about him once he was locked up, because he had nothing but time to just open up and begin to share with me the real about his life. And so I found out a lot of different things, and I decided maybe he's just been locked up so long. Maybe if I do talk quieter, if I move different, if I cook more, if I don't do theater, if I don't go to class so long, if I'm not on campus as much, if I come straight home, if I give him my money, if I don't complain about other women, if I don't know, maybe it's just a phase, is what I kept telling myself. Because I decided to get pregnant, then this is my fate. Like, this is what I deserve. Our household was just up and down, but we were taught to just go to school and act like nothing happened. Like our house wasn't just destroyed and, or people's clothes weren't thrown on the front lawn. Like, it was just everything's perfect, And so I feel like I just translated that straight into my marriage. When I found out I was pregnant, and I just knew she was a girl, he didn't want to have another child. He was like, well, maybe we just need to get an abortion. I said, okay. He got paid, and then sometimes when he would get paid, he would move out that weekend, so he wouldn't have to pay a bill or something. And so I said, hey, if you want to move out, okay, I understand, but can you help me with the rent? And he wouldn't. And I'm like, he won't help with the rent. I'm pregnant. maybe I should just ask for the money for an abortion and go. And so he gave me the money for the abortion, and I went to the clinic. But when I got there, there's like people protesting, calling me a murderer, a killer. There was like these pads on the chair. They give us this rundown. They were like, before you go into the doctor's office, you may have the miscarriage before then, and that's why the pads are on the chair. And so I just remember sitting in this waiting room thinking, like my mind flashed, like some of these women that I was just sitting in this cold office waiting room with may be losing their child right on the chair beside me. Not saying that women don't have that choice, but at that time, it totally tripped me out, and I freaked out and I left and decided that I'd keep the rest of the other half of the money that they did give me back and pay it towards my bills. I remember January 2nd, 2015. I came home and there was a lock on my apartment door, which meant that the rent wasn't paid. And only days before that, he had like pulled a knife to my throat and told me that he was gonna kill me. And I remember clutching my daughter to my chest and like trying to get into the crib with her, because it's like as soon as you put her down. I was screaming, I was banging on the wall. I thought my neighbors were gonna come save me, but they didn't. And I was trying to figure out, how can I get him out of my house? Because I had tried to leave. I had tried to tell him to leave. He wouldn't leave. And that day when I got that lock on there, I went to a shelter for battered women and decided that this was going to be my chance. Like, I have to take my kids to a shelter because I have nothing. I've lost everything. And even then, after the shelter, I still took him back one more time. It wasn't until he went to prison again that I was able to actually say, you know what, God, I think you've heard my prayers. I'm leaving him. And I don't want my daughter to grow up like this. I don't want my son to grow up like this. And I believe that you love me. I believe that my pride kept me here. And my humility is what's going to allow me to allow you to forgive me in this divorce. After I left him, he got out of prison. He came back home, and I didn't want to be with him. And he kept trying. I kept saying no. And like, he harassed me at my home. He tried to do things like, okay, well, I'm just gonna pick the children up for a weekend to help you, and then say that he wasn't gonna bring them back. Like, he got my car impounded, so I had to walk an hour to like the closest bus stop so that I could ride the bus into town. I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning, start walking at 5. Eat koi. My daughter was 2, so I would put her on my shoulders. My son, he was 4, and every morning we would have to walk an hour because there was no sidewalks. So we would walk in the grass, and sometimes he would just cry the whole time. And I would be so upset, but I was not upset with him because I knew that he was tired. He was 4. And Monday through Friday, he was walking an hour before he was even getting his day started at school, you know? And I try not to complain because I'm like, people do this all around the world. I was exhausted. I felt like I couldn't survive like that every day. And that maybe if I moved home closer to my family, that maybe I could have more help. And so I decided to move back to Charlotte after living in Winston-Salem for 7 years. And so I moved back here. My mom told me I had 90 days. I had 90 days to find a car, a job, and a house, or I would have to go back to the shelter with my children. And I was like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And I did it. It took me 100 days, but I did it. And I was constantly trying to find like free things that I could do because I was depressed, I was sad, and I decided to just do stuff. I was taking a single and parenting class, and Fran would come and knock on my door, which is one of the masteries. Me and my children would stand on the balcony and see kids go in and out of their house, and they have like paper and watermelons, and I'm like, what are these people doing, right? So one day they knocked on our door and they told us about the class, and I'm like, sure, but the day they were having the class was a day that I was already going to an e-group through Elevation, and so, which is a church. And I said, well, I'm going to single and parenting, but when it's over, I promise, I'm gonna pick right up, because I'm like, great, this class ends, so I'll have something to start as soon as it's over. And so I'm like, the only catch is if I let my children come to the children's class, I have to be in there with you because I don't know you. And she was like, sure, we'd love for you to come to our house. And so they had asked me would I be willing to participate in one of the Ruhi Institute courses, which was book 1. I said, sure, why not? Like, that's another night a week that I'm doing something positive. It's holding me accountable. I could create the space that I'm trying to create in my life right now. And I went to some Institute camps with them and out in the mountains at the Ronstads. I would kind of tell my mom what I was doing, like my family what I was doing, and like they were like, why are you with those people? You're lying. God is punishing you because this has nothing to do with Jesus. So then I'm like, oh my goodness, I became a Baha'i like a month into my period of service and declared, and I felt like the words were inspiring, and then like the kindness from the Baha'i community was unmatched, at least that I had met from these Baha'is. And I just felt like I wanted to be able to share that with someone else. Like I want someone to meet that in me as well. And I felt like my children need to learn anything that would make them want to be like this, to just meet people and share the word of God and community build and laugh together and eat together and pray together and learn together and just really be like a family, And I decided to declare as a Baha'i. It doesn't matter what happens in the past. When your heart is seeking for the truth, it will come to you like a breeze.